Hey there, folks. Welcome back. So this week, we're going to take a look at automation and some of the features that Photoshop has to make your life easier. We've been doing a lot of work in Photoshop, and the whole, a big part of learning these advanced tips and tricks is to make our workflow quicker and smoother and make our lives as designers a little bit easier. So this week, we're going to look at some of the automation features, and many of those are located in the File menu. We've seen one of these already. Under Automate, we've used the PDF presentation feature to actually go and find different images to combine into a single PDF. So that's one way that Photoshop helps us out. But there are some other ones down here as well that are pretty useful. We're going to look at Batch. We're going to look at photo merge briefly, and then some of the other things down here as well. Now, under scripts, there is something called image processor, and we're not going to go through that, but it's a really useful thing. If you have, say, you have 100 photos that you need to open up and save as a JPEG and convert to RGB color mode. Maybe they're CMYK TIFFs or something like that. Well, this allows you to choose that folder of images, choose how you want to save the files, and then run it, and it's going to automatically open up each one of those files and resave it. And it's going to do it real quick in the background, and you're done. So that will save you a lot of time if you have a large number of photos that you need to adjust. Maybe you're a photographer, or maybe you were given a folder full of photos that you need to edit. So these automation features are going to save you a lot of time when it comes to that sort of stuff. Let's see, what else? What we're going to do, we're also going to look at loading files into stacks. So using the action figures that I gave you, just 3 pictures of an action figure that I took, I want to show you how we can combine photos, multiple exposures to get one composite photo. And it's a pretty neat feature. It's not perfect all the time, but it's pretty amazing what it can do. So first thing I want to do is I want to get all of these action figure photos open up. This is for my kitchen table. I got this guy, and I moved him, took another shot. This one took another shot. All right, so I want to open all 3 of those up. I could drag them all to the Photoshop icon and go to File, Open, as we've been doing. But if you want to open a bunch of images into a single file, there's a quicker way. So if I go to File, File down to Scripts and Load Files into Stack. All right, when I click on that, it's going to give me a little dialog, and I go and I find the files that I want. So I'll go to my desktop and wherever you have this action figures folder, and then I will just click on the first one and then hold down Shift to click on the last one so it selects all 3, and click Open, and you'll see all of those images right there, and then you click OK, and just like that, Photoshop will open all 3 of those images. Now, looking at this guy, I can hide this layer, and you'll see the other one, and then I'll hide this layer, and you'll see the third picture. But you'll notice that all these photos were all taken by hand, so the placement is it changes a little bit. Like you can see the horizon line where the table is moves just a bit for each one. So if I wanted to kind of blend these photos together to make a little army of action figures, I would have some trouble doing that. All right, because the photos just aren't exactly where they need to be. However, Photoshop has a way to help us out with that. So you want to first thing you want to do is select the layers that you're going to be dealing with. So in this case, I'm going to click the topmost layer and then hold down Shift and click the bottommost layer to select all 3 of those layers. All right, then I'm going to go up to the Edit menu. So a lot of the automation features that we've looked at were under the File menu, but for this feature, we're going to look at the Edit menu. All right, and down about halfway, you're going to see something that says Auto Align Layers. Anything that says Auto is a useful automation feature in Photoshop. All right, so when I click on Auto Align Layers, it's going to give me this dialog box. What you want to make sure you have checked is Automatic. If that doesn't work, then you can look at some of these other features, but Automatic usually works pretty well. And you want to make sure these 2 boxes are unchecked. Vignette Removal and Geometric Distortion. We don't want to worry about that just now. So then I click OK, and Photoshop does its thing just like that real quick. Now you'll see some things have shifted, some things have moved around, and there's some odd edges on my image, you'll see a little bit of transparency on the sides here. But whenever I hide these layers now, look what happens. See this line right here is kind of how Photoshop looked at it, and now that table is exactly in the same spot. So Photoshop does a pretty good job of looking at elements in your photo and saying, okay, these should all be lined up whenever it does auto align. Now, what we could do if we wanted to show all of these guys is we could mask each image. We could click on this first image, add a layer mask. Now you don't have to do this, I'm just showing you how it would be done. You could add a layer mask and then start painting over, masking that, and bringing this guy in here. But look what happens. Whenever we do that, the exposure is a little bit different. So the background's a little bit lighter. So it's not really going to give us what we want to do. So I'm going to go back in my history panel before I did that brush. And now I'm going to show you, and actually before I did the layer mask. So I'm going to show you a quicker and easier way. So I'm going to again select all three of these layers. You want to select the layers that you're dealing with. And then I'm going to go back to the edit menu, and right below auto align layers, you're going to see something that says auto blend layers. So when I click on that, it's going to ask, how do I want to do it? Now this is one way to create panoramas. Used to Photoshop, it was an amazing thing that you could combine all these photos into a panorama. And I used to do that as an exercise. Now just about everybody's phone can do it just as well. So I've left that exercise out. I will show you how it's done, but you know, it's not as useful as it used to be. But so we want stack images checked because these are images that are on top of each other. And in this case, we want both of these boxes checked. The seamless tones and colors and the content aware fill. You want to check those. Click OK. It's going to blend the selected layers based on content. And then it's going to affect the color and the exposure and all that kind of stuff. It'll take a second. Hopefully it won't crash your computer, but it does take a fair amount of memory. And it creates a seamless composition, and there you go. Just like that. So now we have this group of action figures from multiple exposures. And there's a little bit of a selection here where it's kind of content aware filled. If you look at your history panel, you'll see everything that was done automatically. So stamp layers, trim, load selection, and fill. All this stuff Photoshop did on its own. All right, so I'm going to deselect just to get rid of those marching ants. And you can see our image. Now, this is pretty cool. This works great for if you're trying to take a group shot. Maybe you take 5 or 6 exposures of the group shot, and you know there's one where a little kid's picking his nose, or one where somebody's blinking, or something like that. If the camera is in roughly the same spot, you can just load those files as a stack and auto blend them, and it will try to, or you might have to manually use a mask, but you can bring in, you can pick and choose what you want from each one of those photos and get a really good group shot. So that's one practical application to this if you want to go beyond just taking pictures of action figures. But there's a lot of ways that you could see this could be useful. In addition to what was done right here, you'll also see these really complex masks that were created. And it will create a merged layer on top. All right, so we have this merged layer, and then if I hide this mask, you'll see we've gotten a lot of really crazy stuff going on that Photoshop has done for us. It does the best it can. Now, it's like I said, it's not perfect. If we look up here, there are some things that Photoshop couldn't fix. So I'll zoom in a little bit. If you look up here, this window is kind of wonky. There's some odd things going on right there. There's some blurry areas right here, and I've noticed this doesn't always happen. But with this particular photo, this guy's feet are a little bit transparent, and the way that Photoshop blends it, it's really hard to fix. So rather than spend hours trying to fix that, I'm just going to get rid of the problem by drawing a selection right below that and kind of cutting it off right here where the feet are. And then I'm going to crop it. So I used the rectangular marquee tool to draw a selection. All right, and then I'm going to go to Image and crop. It doesn't matter what layer you're on for this because we're looking at the entire image. All right, and then I'll deselect, and there. All those problems have been fixed now. So that's the easy way to do it. So that's all I wanted to show you. That's a pretty easy assignment for you guys. Because it's automated. Photoshop does a lot of the work for you. However, it's really useful to keep these tools in mind whenever, it can make your life a lot easier down the road. So save this file as a PSD to your flash drive or wherever you save your work. Then save a copy as a JPEG. And the JPEG will be a flattened version. That's what you're going to turn in to Blackboard.